Go back to council at this time. Doug?
Yeah, so at least for council, just because it's come up all night and it's come up a couple other times, I want to, just for the public's edification, I want to reiterate that the city council only has jurisdiction and control over the city manager position and the city attorney position. In addition to that, so when we're talking about the police chief, they don't control who gets hired or doesn't get hired, except for in these situations where we're talking about contract awards.
And the city manager has decided to appoint Chuck Hale as Livingston Police Chief. Greetings, everyone. This is the Gardening Snail of Livingston, California, just trying to keep the community informed and local government as honest as humanly possible. Editorial content is my own as a resident of Livingston and does not represent the views and opinions of the City of Livingston City Council or the City of Livingston itself, and it most definitely does not hold itself out to be any kind of legal advice. City Council regular meeting agenda, meeting to begin at 7 p.m. The public can participate in the meeting via teleconference by calling 520-525-8911. Additionally, the meeting will be streamed on YouTube Live. As of the recording date of this video, there is no special meeting scheduled. However, I will be checking the city website just to see if one happens to pop up before this meeting. Given the way things have been going around here, I would be more surprised if there wasn't a special meeting to suddenly show up at the last minute. Public comments can be submitted via email at citycouncil@livingstoncity.com. Comments must be received by 2 p.m. on the day of the city council meeting in order for them to be distributed to the council prior to consideration of the matter. You will need to provide meeting date, item number, name, email, and comment. Please limit to 300 words or 3 minutes. Please include public comment in the subject for the email. This is new. Written comments will not be read aloud at the meeting, but will be reported as received for the record. If you do not receive an acknowledgement of receipt of your email by 4 p.m., please call the city clerk's office at 209-394-8041, extension 121. Note, this technology is not a guaranteed method. So after the call to order and all that, it is time for citizens' comments, where you are normally allowed 3 minutes to address the council on anything that is not otherwise on the agenda, followed by announcements and reports, and after that, the consent agenda. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine or non-controversial and will be enacted by one vote unless separate action is requested by the city manager or city council member. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the city council or city manager request that specific items be removed. Number 1, waiving of reading of ordinances and resolutions. That's usually a constant on the consent calendar. Number 2, authorize remote teleconference meetings. That's on every consent calendar. Ratify check warrants. That's normally there too. Number 4, approve the local funding agreement. This has to do with Measure V sales tax money. After that comes discussion and potential action items, with number 5 certain to be the hot topic of the night. Approval of the appointment of Charles Hale as Chief of Police and ratification of employment agreement. We'll talk a little bit more about the employment agreement itself in just a couple of moments. Then number 6, which council members get to go to the conference in Long Beach, California, followed by council direction on future agenda items and adjournment. Before we get to the item that has some people buzzing on social media, I want to touch on the resolution approving the local funding agreement with the Merced County Association of Governments. This has to do with Measure V, a 30-year 1/2 cent sales tax. 50% of the funds generated by Measure V are required to be allocated to each jurisdiction within Merced County for use on local projects. Each jurisdiction, including the city, will receive a minimum $150,000 allocation. The remaining funds in the local project fund will be distributed to local jurisdictions based equally on the percentage share of Merced County's population that resides in the jurisdiction and the percentage share of the county-wide publicly maintained road miles located in the jurisdiction. The local funding agreement also requires 20% of the monies the city receives from the local project fund to be used for alternative modes projects, which are projects that will improve air quality and the environment. Examples of projects include, but are not limited to, bicycle projects, pedestrian improvements, van pool, carpools, or other ride-sharing programs. The local funding agreement enables the city to receive its share of the local project funds from MCAG. Now let's touch on a few of the details on the upcoming approval of the appointment of Charles Hale as Chief of Police and ratification of employment agreement. Livingston Municipal Code authorizes the city manager to appoint and promote, discipline, suspend, or dismiss all officers and employees of the city except the city clerk, city attorney, and city treasurer. The city manager requests ratification of the employment agreement with Charles Hale to the position of Chief of Police. And if you have been following Livingston's "We're Trying to Find a Police Chief" woes, the city has been looking to hire a new police chief for quite a while, but can't seem to find anyone willing to take the job. Moving on. The employment agreement for the Chief of Police position includes the following terms. Chief of Police will be an at-will employee. Chief of Police will be paid an annual base salary of $160,000. The benefit package is consistent with the benefit package of management personnel, and Chief Hale will begin work tentatively on or before September 12, 2022. Now let's take a look at one of the more interesting tidbits in the employment agreement, that of termination. Hale may resign at any time and terminate his employment with the city by giving the city 30 days written notice in advance of resignation. During the notice period, all the rights and obligations of the parties under this agreement shall remain in full force and effect. Now this is where it gets really interesting. In the event city terminates Hale's employment without cause, Hale shall be entitled to severance pay of a lump sum payment equal to 18 months base salary during the first year of this agreement, 12 months base salary during the second year of this agreement, and 6 months base salary during the third year of this agreement and thereafter. Severance pay of this agreement shall be conditioned upon Hale signing a waiver and release agreement, forever releasing and waiving any and all claims in a form acceptable to the city. Any cash settlement related to the termination of this agreement received by Hale from the city shall be fully reimbursable to the city if Hale is convicted of a crime involving an abuse of his office or position while employed by the city. If Hale is terminated for cause, the city shall not owe any severance pay under this agreement. And here is a list of things that qualify as termination for cause. Feel free to pause and read at your leisure. And the indemnification and notices clause. And finally on the agenda, who gets to go to the 3-day conference in Long Beach? If you like what I do here, please follow me on Facebook and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you don't, I really don't know what to tell you, except thanks for hanging out this long.